The Mazda CX-70 was a copy and paste job of the most distinct three-row mainstream crossover. Its appeal is niche, but thanks to a federal tax rebate, I think it is well worth your consideration for now. Before we continue, if you enjoy fun, detailed car content, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Thank you. With the new administration coming in, some EV credits will probably go away. I understand why we introduced those credits. The plug-in industry was in its infancy last decade, but it is a little weird that they still need nursing over 10 years later. I don't want to ignore that there are tax breaks for the oil industry that should benefit internal combustion by lowering your fuel costs. But that's not the topic of today's discussion. Instead, let's talk about how you can use the electric incentives to your advantage. At the moment, a lot of people in the United States qualify for a $7,500 federal tax rebate when purchasing plug-in EVs. However, there are a lot of nuances, like where the car was built and where the battery materials are sourced, that oftentimes makes a car ineligible. The flip side is that if you're leasing the car, the requirements are less stringent. So the CX-70 gets no credit if you're financing it, but if you're leasing it, you get the whole thing. So the government sees leased vehicles as commercial vehicles, which means that the manufacturer will get the rebate, not you, but then the manufacturer can then pass that on to the customer at the point of purchase instead of during tax season, and this will make a big difference on how much you pay a month. This made me curious, so I wanted to make a little comparison. I went down to my local dealership, Royal South Mazda here in Bloomington, Indiana, and had them make a couple deals. These are the final numbers, all fees included. This is what you should be able to find across America. So car number one is the Mazda CX-5 Signature. Fully loaded, that is quite a nice compact SUV, assuming good credit, a 36-month, 36,000 mile lease, and the minimum money down of the first month payment, you're looking at $645 a month. Now, with a fully loaded CX-70 that packs a little more features, much more size, more comfortable seats, and a plug-in hybrid powertrain to reduce your fuel costs, you're looking at $671 a month. The small fine print there is that you have to pay a tax on the tax rebate, which will increase the money down by about $750. Some other states also offer their own EV credits, so this could be even cheaper depending on where you live. Just also remember, you can only lease in the state that you reside in. Now, that's not to say this is a cheap car, but if you manage to get the special 2.9% financing for 72 months, you'd still have to fork over about $1,000 every month. Now I have two questions to answer. Is the Mazda CX-70 PHEV worth consideration? And if the incentive goes away, can it justify a $60,000 price tag? Like trying banquet pot pies as an adult, the CX-70 is worse than I remembered, at least in certain scenarios. After driving it for 500 miles, I think I have a different appreciation for the big Mazda. The plug-in hybrid uses a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter inline-4 paired up with an 8-speed wet clutch automatic and an electric motor sandwiched in between the two. With the turbo inline-6 of the standard car, you will have a small motor, as it's just a mild hybrid, whereas with the PHEV, you'll have a much more powerful unit. It puts out 173 electric ponies, or 323 combined. This is unique because even while operating as an EV, it's running through gears. Electric motors, while they can spin really fast and still give you torque from 0 RPM, still benefit from having gear ratios because it allows them up at highway speeds to spin slower. This in turn will increase your efficiency. So that actually helped me get 31 miles of combined driving range on electric alone, beating the EPA rating. Once the all-EV driving range has been depleted, this will still have enough charge to operate as a standard hybrid, which also improves your gas mileage and keeps this engine from feeling too stressed out. This recommends premium fuel for maximum performance. The real-world difference between the octanes is subtle. On 87, I managed to persuade the CX-70 to 60 in 6.4 seconds. The flat-out performance of this, maybe not too impressive, but I do like that this really benefits from the electric assistance and that it doesn't need to downshift constantly. It feels like it has boatloads of torque and doesn't require a whole lot of effort, or at least as much effort as I was thinking for a 5,200 pound SUV. And another advantage with the PHEV is that you have a 1,500 watt outlet in the rear, perfect for camping with an air fryer. Flipping this into sport mode, I get a whole lot of red stimulation from the gauge cluster, and it gives you sharp throttle response that is sweetened by the instant electric torque. Mazda also added an induction pipe from the engine bay, so you hear more of the 4 pots good side. But you're not going to beat the smooth tone of the inline-6. Though no matter your powertrain choice, this whale of a Mazda dances like a dolphin. This has a firm suspension, which comes with some drawbacks that we'll talk about soon, but it does mean that despite the weight, body roll isn't terrible, very manageable. And this uses a rear-biased all-wheel drive system. That is standard on every car, and it's the same one that you'll find with the inline-6. The engine is also placed far back, further improving that balance, making this hilariously good on a back road. The steering complements the body control too. It's not exactly eager to change direction, there's just a little bit too much weight, but it's super precise and slow, which makes it all very predictable. I also think in this setting, the weight of the wheel is basically perfect. It's got quite a bit of heft, reminding you of what you're driving, but it does build up nicely too. It makes me feel like I know what the front end is doing, even though I'm not getting a ton of feedback. This has an athleticism that you just would not expect by looking at it. But there are some sacrifices to this design. So first, I appreciate that Mazda gave us real gears and not just some sort of ECVT. This makes it more engaging to drive. But gear changes can be clunky. I don't find the same hesitancy that I experienced with the inline-6 powertrain, but especially when the car is cold, it's not as seamless as I was hoping it would be. The ride transmits nasty city streets with a little too much accuracy. Depending on where you live, you might seriously want to reconsider buying a CX-70 if you highly prioritize a smooth, comfortable ride. If the pavement around you isn't that bad, this will hardly draw attention to itself. But just not here. And that steering that I love so much on a back road becomes more of a chore at low speeds. This performs parking lot maneuvers like an 03 Trailblazer with a failing power steering pump. The steering is plain heavy, and the last thing that I hope sees an improvement soon is reliability. The CX-90 platform, like many all-new products, had some teething issues. There was a powertrain recall initially to address a jerky transmission that would cause a shudder. There were electronic woes, especially with the driver assistance tech. There were some reports of major power loss too, along with shaky exterior mirrors and noisy steering. Thankfully, not many issues have been reported yet with the 2025 model. Over my couple of weeks with the Mazda, I've really enjoyed driving it long distances. With the battery depleted, the fuel mileage hovered around 28 to 30 miles per gallon at a little over 70 miles per hour. At highway speeds, there's maybe a little more noise than I'd want for this kind of money, yet the sound levels are more than acceptable. Mazda's lane centering here actually works pretty well. The infotainment system is really easy to use in motion. I can switch from my navigation to music with just one click. And if you feel the primal urge to touch something, you can control the screen that way, but it doesn't work near as well. I also just enjoy spending time in here. You might not see a bunch of authentic metal or wood, but Mazda put soft touch materials in the places where it matters. All the finishes here look upscale, and it feels like it's built really well, with the only exception being the hollow feeling doors from the outside. The materials of the more expensive BMW X5 or Audi Q7 are going to be more luxurious, but really this is an impressive interior and it's made all the bit better by this mature looking red. And because this is the Premium Plus, you're getting a ton of features. We're talking heated and ventilated seats, a heated steering wheel, a giant head-up display, a nice looking digital display that has very limited functionality, a big partially opening panoramic sunroof, and a good but not luxury quality Bose sound system. It has great punch, good clarity, until you start turning the volume dial a little too much. Then it's not quite as crisp. I'm only nitpicking it because of the MSRP. Now let's talk a few drawbacks. While I do like how the center console opens, it's very shallow. This center tunnel is also extremely wide, kind of impeding on your space, but it is padded and I didn't personally find it to be a nuisance. I also think that the way the front and rear cameras are displayed is counterintuitive, and I wish I could make it default to the standard view. The cup holders can block the climate controls, and these seats could benefit from longer bottom cushions, as I found thigh support to be a little lacking at 6'3". Nevertheless, I think they're easily more comfortable than what you'll find in the CX-5 or 50, and I am a huge fan of the analog approach. It's simple and it should age well. And in the back, tall people will fit without a problem. You have your own HVAC controls, heated seats, and not a crazy huge drivetrain hump. The cargo area is also cavernous if you're comparing it to other mid-size SUVs. However, I measured it and there is basically no difference between this and the CX-90 with the seats folded. Instead, Mazda just gives you a ton of underfloor storage, which does make me lean toward just buying a CX-90 and folding the seats. That way they're still there just in case, but I also prefer the grille, the black trim, and the red seats of the CX-70, so that would make the decision difficult. On its own, the Mazda CX-70 is not a bad car, but it is a little difficult for me to recommend. Chances are, if you're buying something this large, you probably want 3 rows. I think as a 2-row, this is gonna feel like overkill to a lot of people, but not all of them. However, its more stiff ride will also turn away people who were wanting more of a comfortable cruiser. Even if it's nice on the highway, has a decent all-electric range, surprisingly agile handling, and a well-equipped, spacious interior, its price tag and odd pros and cons give it an incredibly niche appeal. I will not say that the loaded CX-70 PHEV isn't worth 60 grand, but I'd think really hard before spending that kind of money on one. However, this leases out like a $45,000 SUV. With that approach, this is an incredible deal. If you're looking at high-trim CX-5s or 50s and you don't mind the extra size, I'd strongly suggest leasing a CX-70 plug-in while you can take advantage of the US government. Thanks for watching. Thank you to my channel members for helping me improve my video quality, and thank you all for helping me do some cool stuff in 2024. I wish you the best 2025. I'll catch you in the next one.